he's going to hit 500 home runs. My goodness. 2 for the Mariners on opening night against the Yanks, and 3 more on Friday night in Toronto. Add him up for Junior in April. Already it's been a lucky 13 on the second night of the season. For the Yanks, Tino hit a 3 spot against his ex-mate Mariners. Add up the RBIs in April, it's a pair of 3s, 33. A major league mark for Martinez, another for Griffey. But the ink is not dry yet. From the house that Ruth built, Yankee Stadium in the Bronx, with all that history, is this the year that we finally talk about the accomplishments of Roger Maris and 61 home runs? Is this the year that hallowed mark is broken? Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Berman, along with Buck Martinez, and welcome to Wednesday Night Baseball. Oh, by the way, the Yankees and Mariners are 2 of the best teams in baseball. Oh, by the way, this just in, Ken Griffey Jr. is good. Major league record for home runs at the end of the month of April was 11. Junior already has 13, and the scariest thing, Buck, is he says with a straight face, I really don't think I'm in the groove yet. Uh-oh.
Well, Chris, his manager, Lou Piniella, thinks that Ken Griffey Jr. will get hotter than he is right now, and that's a frightening thought. Griffey Jr. is a home run hitter. He's got a long, fluid swing, and he can lift a lot of balls out of any ballpark, hit them to any field. But he says, you know what? I'm always better in May, so American League pitchers are going to have to be on guard because May's coming up real quick.
Well, he has 30 RBIs in the month of April. The Major League record, Barry Bonds, 32. No, scratch that. Tino Martinez of the Yankees who now has 33 with 1 day to go. And Tino does admit he's in the groove and relaxed.
Well, this year is a different story for Tino Martinez. He's a reigning world champion. He's had a great spring. Last year at this time, he had 3 home runs and 13 RBIs. He's very comfortable in a Yankee uniform, and he's been able to carry that momentum onto the field. He's had a great month.
Oh, by the way, we have a bevy of stars when you get the New York Yankees and the Seattle Mariners together. Oh, by the way, one of the best rivalries in the American League these days. I wouldn't leave. Welcome to New York. It was a beautiful day this afternoon, but the wind has kicked up a little bit. A chilly evening, but remember, it is still April. As the Seattle Mariners and the New York Yankees, really the last 3 years, no better rivalry in the American League. They get set to do battle in the rubber game of this 3-game set. They have split 4 games this season. And let's see who can get the season advantage, at least at the end of the month of April. And here's the Mariners lineup for manager Lou Piniella. Rich, protect your car with Amaral. Will lead off and play left field. Alex Rodriguez, of course, is the shortstop. Junior is in center field. Edgar Martinez, who, of course, was 12 for 21 in that divisional series 2 years ago against the Yankees. You can see what he's done career against the Yankees. He has just ruined them. Jay Ferris Buhner scuffling a little bit thus far in right field, hitting 5th. Mike Blowers is the first baseman in a straight platoon lineup for Lou Piniella. Dan Hack Wilson is the catcher. Russ Davis, a good start for him at third base for the former Yankee. And another former Yankee, Alvaro Espinoza, gets the start at second base. And that will be the lineup that will go against the big left-hander, first-year New York Yankee, one of the more ebullient guys in the clubhouse, and another boomer, David Wells.
The boomer, the pitcher, is on the mound tonight, making his 6th start for the Yankees. He's 1-1. Last Friday night against the Chicago White Sox, he lost his first game as a New York Yankee. The hit total is a bit high at this point, and David Wells said he's just really not locating his pitches very well right now. He's got a couple of different fastballs, a 2-seamer that'll sink down and away from the right-handers. He's got a good cut fastball that he runs on their hands, curveball and a changeup, but location is the key for David Wells. Defensively behind David Wells, the Yankees really haven't been that good so far. Tim Raines got good speed in left field. Bernie Williams, of course, one of the best center fielders out there between Raines and O'Neill. Boggs and Jeter on the left side, and Derek Jeter is playing the same way he played last year for New York. 1 error in the first 26 games. Mariano Duncan's at second base. Tino Martinez off to a great start at first. As you look at Derek Jeter, obviously we've got 2 of the best shortstops in the game here tonight.
No question about it, and they probably will be for the next 15 years. The Mariner lineup, our Nextel lineup, and Rich Amaral will start it off. We told you about platoon. Left field is a platoon, depending on righty-lefty starters between Amaral and Lee Tinsleytown. Espinoza and Cora platoon at second base, and Blowers and Sorrento platoon at first. And Lou Piniella has stayed with that plan the first 4 weeks of the season.
Well, the Seattle Mariner Ball Club is hitting .334 against left-handed pitchers, and they haven't seen that many. But Wells will have to be on his game tonight if he hopes to beat Seattle.
Lou Piniella, of course, a fan favorite here in New York. Played on World Championship Yankee team. He's a hustler. New Yorkers love his style immediately. And he says he gets a lot of phone calls from people he haven't heard from when he comes into New York. How about some tickets? And he enjoys, he respects what the Yankees did last year, and congratulated Mr. Steinbrenner on the championship. But that being said, I think he gets a little extra kick if his club can beat the Yankees, as they did in that '95 playoff.
I was a teammate of Lou Piniella's in 1969 when he was the American League Rookie of the Year. He was intense then, and he's still intense.
Scramble to short. Jeter gobbles it up. So across the Tito Martinez, 1 up, 1 down for David Wells, who in a couple of starts is not, especially his last one, although he was hurt by one misplay in the outfield you mentioned, but he would like to have a big start here. David Wells is 9-2 lifetime in Yankee Stadium. Won the only game the Orioles won in the ALCS last year, Game 2 here at Yankee Stadium. One of the reasons the Yankees got him was he's just so good at Yankee Stadium, and here he lost on Friday night pitching against the White Sox, and you can see his career mark. But as a Yankee, he's not really delivered here, and he's maybe put a little bit too much pressure on himself. Rather than 2 starts a year in here, that he has 15 of them, and he's trying so hard. But he'll give it his all as he starts off Alex Rodriguez with a strike.
Already in this first inning, I've seen David Wells locate his pitches much more effectively than he did last Friday night. He has been able to throw strikes on both sides of the plate. He started off Rodriguez with a good fastball away. There's a good hook. Joe Torre loves David Wells. He said, you know what, he's kind of a goofy left-hander, but he's a tremendous competitor. Take a look at the late break on this curveball. Comes out of his hand on the same plane as a fastball, and that makes it tough for hitters to pick up.
Sliced foul wide of first base coach Sammy Mejias. Joe Torre's club has kind of been up, down, had that 5-game losing streak early, and yes, one more win for Joe, and it gets him out of the trivia question business, in which managers who have lost over 1,000 games have yet to win 1,000 games. Let's get that out of the way tonight. Breaking ball misses inside, so now it's 2-2.
All right, David Wells has got pretty good velocity. That was his cut fastball that just moved on the inside. Watch the late movement. He's trying to find that inside quarter, but he cuts it enough that it breaks inside. He was trying to get Rodriguez to swing over the top of that.
Off speed, and Rodriguez laid off, and now he's worked the count to full with the 4th junior on deck. Gary, just get excited. I know we've said this already, but you get excited watching him. But these 2 shortstops, look at the faces. Alex Rodriguez, Derek Jeter. I mean, they're happy to come to the park every day. They understand that we want to bring baseball back to the fans with hustle and enthusiasm. He's trying to hustle it out, but Mariano Duncan makes a nice play to Tito Martinez, and Rodriguez is gone.
Well, Mariano Duncan gets a lot of notice for his bat, but he makes a good play behind David Wells here. Alex Rodriguez got jammed, and it may have broken his bat, but that little kick off the mound makes it a playable play. As Duncan gets set, he slipped a bit with his right foot, but still gets enough on the throw for the out at first.
So this is Junior Griffey, who, of course, began our first game of the season with home runs in his first 2 at-bats. Well, last night went 0 for 5, said he wasn't feeling well, said he hadn't really felt all that well this spring. This isn't Junior trying to downplay what he's done. I believe him. I asked him, I said, Junior, you're talking to me. What do you mean you're not in the groove? Because I just don't feel, sometimes I feel like I'm moving around a little bit with my hips more than I'm accustomed to.
You hear hitters talk about being locked in, and he's not there yet. That was a foul tip. Yep.
That being said, Wells says 13 home runs, that's locked in enough for me. I'm going to bust him in because I'm not sure if his hand is still all right. So my plan tonight is to work him inside as much as I can, and I know until we can try that. And he gets him to wave it one a little bit on the outside corner. So 1, 2, 3, top of the first for David Wells and the Yankees. We'll be back to the Bronx to watch El Presidente, 41 years young, Dennis Martinez.
Martinez is making his 5th start of the season for Lou Piniello's Seattle Mariners. He's 1-1. Last time out against the Toronto Blue Jays, he was hooked up with Roger Clemens. He gave up 3 home runs, so 3 of his 4 home runs came in his last start. I asked Wade Boggs about Dennis Martinez. He said, kitchen sink, man. He throws you everything. All different angles. Defensively, the Seattle Mariners have a Gold Glover in center fielder in Ken Griffey. Amaral is the left field platoon. Jay Buhner, solid right fielder, strong arm. Russ Davis off to a great start at third base, coming back after that ankle injury. Alex Rodriguez, a great shortstop, young guy. We talked about Jeter and Rodriguez, 2 fine shortstops in this game. Tonight, you're going to see 2 of them, and they love to rob each other of base hits.
Saw it last night. Rob Jeter. Raines, Boggs, and Williams to start up against Dennis Martinez, who will be 42 years of age on May 14th. Jimmy Raines started the year on the DL. Darryl Strawberry got hurt. Mark Whitten had left field for a while. Raines knows it's a long season. Waited his turn, never opened up his mouth, and made the most of his opportunity here, picking up his average over 100 points, as we mentioned here during this homestand.
Well, when the Yankees got hot, Tim Raines was right in the middle of all the offensive fireworks. He still runs well. He goes first to third as well as anybody. And he was swinging a hot bat. He got them going. He was the table setter.
It's just went a long way to right field. Back goes Buhner. Back it goes. Back. Gone! Now we told you Raines had keyed some offense. His first home run of the year. 1 batter, 1 run. 1-0 New York. Wow. Wind is swirling out to right a little. Flags don't look that way, and he looked like he caught it in the jet stream, Buck. Well, look where the catcher's sitting. He's well off the plate, and he had to reach all the way back across the plate to get this one. Bad location. Tim Raines hits his 16th career leadoff home run to start the game. Boggs is up. Boggsy hitting at .310 for start of the year with that smash the last couple of days in spring training. You can still see over his left eye under the helmet there. Maybe you can. The remnants of 40 stitches. Bad line drive in the spring training game at Turner Field. Took his glasses, but he was still ready when the bell rung to open the season on April 1st. And once again, no surprise, Boggs hitting over 300. Well, he's got his sight set on 3,000 career hits. A little cut over the eye is not going to knock him out of the lineup. Well, earlier this season, he passed the 2,700 career mark. And Martinez working him outside with the strike at 2-2. Well, Dennis Martinez, lifetime against the New York Yankees. 2-17. I mean, that includes some really wonderful years with the Baltimore Orioles, and really, Buck, what was his other life? And, of course, the last few seasons with the Indians. Last year against the Yankees, for example, Dennis was 0-4. Well, take a look at this. Oh, my goodness. Now, where were you then? I was playing for Kansas City in 1977, the last time Dennis Martinez won here at Yankee Stadium. And that win came in relief. That was my last week as a student at Brown University. It was. We graduated about May 25th, 77. Wow, I hadn't got my diploma yet. That's called a drought. That is a drought. But it's testimony to the fact that Dennis Martinez is pitching in his 20th season. And you're right, this is his second life. He's turned his life around, and he is 1 win shy of Juan Marichal, the all-time winning Latin pitcher. I mean, last year, as he loses Boggs, so obviously he is struggling here in the first. Last year, was 9-6, so he's 9-2 against everybody except the Yankees. Now, Dan Wilson is in a tough mode. Dan is not a veteran catcher yet, but he's been around. But what is he going to go out to the mound and tell Dennis to do, really?
Well, what he's trying to do now is establish a little bit of a rhythm for him and make sure that he pitches ahead. Dennis has lost a little bit of his velocity, and it's difficult for him to pitch from behind.
This is Bernie Williams. Numbers as you're accustomed to seeing from him. 349 with 19 ribbies. With the RBI machine, Tino Martinez on deck. And Dennis starts Bernie off a little bit outside. Ball one.
With Williams at the plate, it's interesting to look at the infield defense. And Mike Flowers, who's at first base tonight, is playing behind Wade Boggs. Nobody out. They don't expect Boggs to run. They want to get as much room for Bernie Williams over there on that right side.
Well, now Wilson will go on. I asked him before the game that, you know, is it not that you're nervous? I mean, you catch Randy Johnson, etc., but he's a different sort of fellow. You're a guy who's been around for 20 years, and he says they pretty much let him call the game, but we have an understanding. So what's he talking about?
Well, with guys like Randy Johnson, who really knows himself, Dennis Martinez is basically the same type of pitcher. He knows what he has to do to be effective. So Dan Wilson is in a learning situation here. He's trying to figure out how you get to Dennis Martinez and what pitches he can throw over in different counts. So it's an ongoing process as they try to get comfortable with one another.
Ground ball. Rodriguez will handle it himself and throw on to Blowers, and they get the double play. So there's the veteran pitcher settling right down and getting a routine double play ball.
Well, they threw a good sinking fastball on the outer part of the plate. Bernie Williams hit it right back up the middle. And Rodriguez made easy work of it.
Here is Tino Martinez, who as soon as this night ends could be in the record books. He is in the record books as we speak, of course, with 33 RBIs for the month of April. He had 7 on that second night of the season, in which he hit 3 home runs. He had 5 earlier in a homestand game, earlier in this homestand against the Brewers. Barry Bonds had the record. He just said it last year. The American League mark was Joe Carter of the Jays with 31. Junior is sitting on 30, and that was Galarraga from a couple of years ago. So theoretically, Junior could hit a slam and have the record tonight, along with his home run mark. But it's Tino's. He's playing with the lead, right? Playing with the house's money. But the base is clear, so Russ Davis and Wilson give a chase 2 rows deep behind the Mariner dugout. For that game that Tino had in the Kingdome, the second game that we did this season, not only did he have a chance to become only the 11th player in this century to hit 4 home runs, because he hit his first 3 home runs in his first 3 at-bats. He had a chance to go for a home run cycle, because he had a solo, a 2-run, a 3-run, and he came up twice with the bases loaded. No one has ever done a home run cycle.
Well, that'll get you in the right frame of mind to start a season, to have a night like that early on.
Foul is above us. One other note, on this date, April 30th, 1961, was the day that one of those 10 gentlemen, Willie Mays, had his 4 home run game against the Milwaukee Braves.
County Stadium.
On this day.
Yeah.
And the game ended with him on deck. Did not get cracked for another one.
Well, you're getting a good look at Dennis Martinez and what he has to do to be effective. He got the double play off the bat of Bernie Williams, and now he's really changing speeds with his fastball and his breaking pitches. Get something off of that.
Flowers to Martinez, and after Raines leads off with a home run and Boggs draws a walk, Martinez settles down, but not until the Yankees play some long ball with the most unlikely in their lineup. The leadoff hitter, Tim Purple Raines, tattoos it to right field. We've played one. The Yankees lead it 1-0. David Wells will deliver to Edgar Martinez. And we told you that Edgar has been a Yankee killer. Boy, that divisional series, after the Yankees won the first 2 games, and Seattle went and won games 3, 4, and 5. Remember game 4? A slam and a 3-run homer.
That's a pretty good night.
Yeah. 12 for 21. I mean, that's close to 600 than he was in the series.
I was talking to Lee Elia, the batting coach for the Mariners, and he said, you know what, they tried everything. And you see what he did in 1995, 517.
I think it's 571, as a matter of fact.
And the big thing about it was that he hit everything. Pitches away from him. He took down the right field line. There's a good backdoor curveball.
Ground ball to short. Derek Jeter. Tina Martinez. 1 out.
David Wells has retired 4 straight now to start this game off against a very good-hitting ball club. And after the first inning, Joe Girardi, Wells' catcher, had a conversation in the dugout. You see Andy Pettit in the background. He's trying to pick up something, too. But this is only the second time Wells has thrown to Girardi. He has thrown to Jorge Posada, the young catcher on this team. Not by design. It's just worked out that way. And David was very anxious to have this game with Girardi behind the plate. He's got tremendous regard for Girardi's ability to call a game.
Swing at the first pitch is Jay Buhner, and under the glove of Mariano Duncan. A tough play, but a ball he should have had. I think Jay will get a single out of it, but the ball that Mariano knows right there that he should have had it.
Well, that ball went under his glove. He got to it, and watch where the ball passes. He actually reaches beyond the ball. He made a tough play in the first inning and made it easily. And this time, this is a much easier play. I think that's one that Mariano should have had.
Well, look at his feet. He knows. I'm sorry. Let's turn 2.
Now, Joe knows that Pat Kelly gives him a little more leather at second base, but he likes the bat of Duncan.
Yeah, but I mean, they've been trying to get Mariano Duncan out of the lineup here for over a year, and all he does is hit about 350. This is Mike April Blowers. I told this is the last day of April Blowers here. Now he has to deliver. After a year away last year with the Dodgers, he's come back and is playing some first base, platooning with Paul Sorrento. He was one of the guys they brought in just in case Russ Davis wasn't really ready, but of course he's had knee surgery and can't move at third yet anyway. And first base is really a new position for him. He says it's coming along. To center field, Bernie Williams coming on. Ball holds up for him. He makes the catch. Buhner back to first. You know, we didn't get a chance to talk about Buhner. He of this famed 2 through 5, Rodriguez, Griffey, Martinez, and Buhner. He's the one that's really coming out of the garage kind of sideways at 222 before that hit. Boy, I just don't feel it at all. He said, I didn't have a bad spring, but I don't even feel close.
Now, and he's the type of guy, when he does feel good, he'll get hot for a week and you can't get him out. Look at Buhner's getting some of that good luck from Tino right there.
I like that.
He said, Tino's hot. I want to give him some good luck here.
You rub on Junior and Tino, he's got to get hot. This is Dan Wilson, one of the unsung but truly fine catchers in the game today. Wilson hitting at 337. Again, last season behind the plate at an 83 RBI season. He's on that sort of pace already. Very good defensive catcher. And I know, Buck, you like him very much and have liked him really since he was behind Joe Oliver at Cincinnati, where he caught Lou Pinella's eye when Lou was managing there, and that was one of the first deals he made to get Wilson over to Seattle.
Well, anytime you're thinking about a contending ball club and winning a World Championship, you've got to have good defense up the middle. Pinella recognized Wilson's abilities when they were together in Cincinnati. And when he came over here to Seattle, he said, you know what, I need Dan Wilson. And the guy that catches 130 games and can drive in over 80 runs is really worth the money.
I traded Brett Boone away in that trade. And Eric Hansen for Ayala and Wilson. Those are 4 players of note. We call him Hack because he had a 3-home run game early last year. 2-home run game early last year at 18 overall. Ripped to third, Boggs, Duncan, and Buhner is gone, and so are the Mariners. So Buhner gets aboard, but nothing doing. Yankees coming up bottom of the second.
Gary Miller with you in the studio for an update from the Jake. Oh, Hershiser delivers, and Mark McGwire does damage. His 10th home run of the year. It bounces off the scoreboard and then into the bleachers. The first time a home run has ever been hit in the bleachers there. Oh, what do you think of that? Oh, it went a long way. We'll go back to New York.
Wow, Gary. Mark McGwire. I mean, is there any home run that he hits that isn't 450 or 485? Or, I mean, he hit one earlier here this year, and we'll show it to you in a moment, right? It was the black section here in center field. I think that's about the 9th or 10th guy that's hit it out there to those seats. As Paul O'Neill begins against this is a long way. I know it's just 408, but there's quite a distance to those black seats. And McGwire hit that earlier this year. Now hits the board at the J.
Well, he hit that home run on the first pitch off of Mariano Rivera. First blown save of the season. You can imagine what that did to the Yankee fans.
Uh-oh. Yeah, but if you're going to blow a save, you might as well blow it 485 feet.
He smoked at a high fastball.
Well, here is the 7th leading batter in the American League, Paul O'Neill, at 364. And it didn't happen in the first 2-game series, but there is a little bit going between O'Neill and his one-time manager with the Reds, Lou Piniella. He's been dusted once or twice a season by this Mariner ball club.
Well, Lou Piniella knows that Paul O'Neill is a tough out. And as a former good hitter himself, sometimes you might get into a hitter's head and make him worry more about being knocked down and getting base hits. Boy, Martinez is pretty good right now in that he's changing speeds and working to both sides of the plate. He fell behind Tim Raines 2-0 and then gave up a solo home run to Raines to start the ball game. But since then, he has locked in on both sides of the plate.
But home plate umpire old Larry Young calls him out. So first strikeout of the game for Dennis Martinez, and that, I guess, painted the corner.
Look at Wilson set up way on the inside part of the plate. Martinez comes inside and gets just enough movement to bring it back over the inside corner. Looks like O'Neill had the outer half on his mind and starts down toward first base and looks back at Larry Young in disbelief.
That'll bring up Cecil Fielder, swinging late in that off-speed pitch and fouls it back. As O'Neill cools off, Cecil, who's trying to warm up. Had a home run here in this homestand, but you see one next to Cecil Fielder's home run stats, and you played 4 weeks. This guy had 51 in the season.
Well, he's been pretty bad, obviously, by the .250 batting average, but he's still driven in 17. That's not a bad month.
Not bad.
He is scuffling. He had a 5-hit game here against the White Sox, hit his first home run, a frozen rope just inside the foul pole down the left field line. And he said, you know, really the first year I've started the season as a DH, and it took me a long time to get my timing down. He said, I'm not using it as an excuse. He said, I just haven't been very good, but I think it had something to do with the fact that I wasn't playing in the field as well.
Oh, boy, watch it. Well, you see that screamer in there, and you just hope nobody got hurt.
See what Cecil has done in the 90s. That's an average season for him. Just over 250, 37 homers. He'll have those numbers in September. You don't have that kind of career, put up those numbers year in and year out and fade too much.
And he's one of only 14 players to have 50 home runs in a season. Reaches out, and that's a good piece of hitting by Cecil Fielder. He was almost fooled by that pitch, but Cecil's aboard with 1 out.
Well, when Cecil is swinging the bat well, he's got great coverage away, and Dennis Martinez gives you a lot of different angles, and here he throws a breaking ball, but look at how Fielder stays on it. Yeah, he hit it off the end of the bat, and he fights to get a base hit with 2 strikes, but you can see how he's on that front foot, still gets enough on the ball to drive it into center. That's a sign that the big guy is getting closer to heating up now.
And that'll bring up Derek Jeter. Well, everybody worried about a sophomore slump? I don't think so. Hitting 7th now. Remember, he started the season at a leadoff. If he likes more, he says, hey, I was enjoying all those at-bats at the top of the order, but with Raines in the lineup, he goes down to 7. And really, he hit everywhere but 3, 4, 5 last year. So he's... Joe Torre said even at leadoff, Buck, I don't want him to change a thing. And he did not. Now he's back at 7, so he's versatile.
Well,
obviously.
Joe Torre knows the mindset of a hitter. And you just got to keep him confident and say, listen, just because I put you in a different spot in the lineup, I don't want you to change your approach. Derek Jeter is one of the young hitters that, although he's struggling right now, he will hit the ball from foul line to foul line.
That was Mark Whitten who that pitch get him.
Boy, that hurt. That hit him right in the rib cage. And although he's going to walk down to first base, he's hurting right now. Dennis Martinez has always had the reputation of a guy that's not afraid to come inside. You can see his catcher is set up inside. This fastball hits Derek Jeter right on the rib cage. Oh, ouch.
I mean, Gene Monahan was at the top step, the longtime trainer of the Yankees, and Derek just looked him away. He won't even come out.
As a hitter, you don't want to give the pitcher any satisfaction that may have hurt. Just stay in there.
So 2 on for Mariano Duncan, hitting at a robust 349. And Martinez starts him away. Mariano last year finished at 340 in a year that all year long, when Pat Kelly got hurt, who are we going to get to play second base? Who's going to do it? No way Duncan will be able to continue. Continued all year long. Cecil at second and Derek Jeter at first. 1-0 Yankees here, bottom of the second. Raines, a leadoff home run. A chopper to Rodriguez. He'll step on second for 1. Over to Blowers, double play. So Dennis Martinez escapes with a double play ball. We played a pair, 1-0. Yankees. To the San Francisco Giants. Can I get that in? And what about Jeff Cannaby's Clark Kent?
Oh, man, Dusty Baker has got to be pleased with the way his ball club's playing right now. Rob Beck's off to a great start.
Until last night, Beck finally gave up the ghost, but 11 out of 12 saves, and the Giants' sum total is so much greater than the individual parts, at least at this point for this league. The NL West leading Gents, Russ Davis, Alvaro Espinoza, Rich Amaral in the 3rd inning against David Wells. Russell Davis, you know, lost in the aura of the 2 home run game that Griffey had that opening game. No one knew really Russ Davis. Could he play third base? Was the leg okay? He brought in all sorts of folks from spring training just to give a look at Chris Sabo for 1 inning. Russ Davis hit a homer in the opening night too, and that was that was as important for him and for overall for the Mariners as Junior going deep play. He's just continued hitting at the 354 clip. I mean, so he's answered the question, would he be ready for the bell?
Well, it was important for him to get that home run out of the way early. You have a lot of doubts when you come back from a serious injury like Russ Davis. He broke his ankle last year in Kansas City in June. And he has always been a high prospect coming to the Yankees. Take a look at his season last year, 5 home runs and 18 ribbies. Just 167 at-bats, and this year, off to a great start. And he has really discovered the right half of the field, and that has turned him into a very, very tough out. And of course, excuse me, Chris, when he was coming up through the Yankee system, he was a dead pull hitter. He didn't even think about anything other than pulling the ball, hitting the ball out of the ballpark, and he was doing okay throughout the minor leagues, but when he got to the big leagues, they exploited the outer half of the plate. For the last year and a half, he has worked hard on becoming a complete hitter.
Bounced in front of him, so 2-2. I mean, Russ Davis, if folks forget, of course, came over to Seattle in the Tino Martinez trade. Sterling Hitchcock and Russell Davis for Tino and Jeff Nelson. Because Hitchcock is going on to San Diego, and they have Scott Sanders as a result. So Tino here, Davis there. Fouled out of play. Count will remain at 2-2. Davis, light, soft-spoken young man, Birmingham, Alabama, 27 years of age. I mean, they had several people in camp. Even Blowers, although he wasn't ready to play third base, but he's another one that's just in case Davis can't go. Sabo was one. Strike 3 on the inside corner. Wells looks like he's on it tonight, Buck.
David Wells wasn't too pleased after his last start against the White Sox. We told you about that. 5 runs. Take a look at the location. Girardi slides to the inside, gives him a good target, and he hits the inside corner at the knee. Larry Young, the umpire behind the plate, has given Wells both sides of the plate early in this ballgame.
So Wells will now face one-time New York Yankee Alvaro Espinosa. Picked up just at the start of the season. He played several seasons, 3-4 seasons with Cleveland, went over to the Mets. Celebrated by a good trade. Espinosa platooned with Joey Cora at second base. They started platooning Brent Gates in Cora. Gates now playing some left. Lou Piniella, yes, it's the American League, and yes, he has some set lineups. Here's the top of the Boggs. Cuts off beautifully. Over to Tito, and there's 2 down. Piniella says it's April. We got to have everybody involved.
Well, he's got some depth on his bench now. He can start Espinosa. Brent Gates. Wade Boggs, noted for his hitting, but he's a 2-time Gold Glover. He may have been the only one that could have had a play on this when he cuts off the high bouncing ball and throws to Martinez for the out. Alex Rodriguez may have gotten, or excuse me, Derek Jeter may have gotten a nasty bounce had Boggs let that thing go.
So back to the top of the order, and Rich, protect your car with Amaral. He grounded it short. And heaven forbid his averages slip below 400. He's at 394 with that out. Amaral in the platoon and left with Lee Tinsley. Amaral converted, as they Gates, a converted infielder who's played some valuable left field for Lou Piniella these few years. There's Tinsley, last year a Red Sox. Second tour duty with the Mariners. Fastball snapped him back high and inside a little bit. 1-1. Now, before it gets too late, we want to say what Brandon Wells, 5-year-old son, watching at home in Florida. He has David Wells, our starter, has Brandon tattooed on his arm. He wanted to get past bedtime for those who watching Dad tonight.
Yeah, David was talking about Brandon before the ball game and said, Brandon, wish me luck tonight.
Working Amaral high and tight. 3-1. Foul out of play. Count will be full at 3-2. Wells can get at it here. We'll leave Alex Rodriguez to lead off. Obviously, that'd be the plan, to start that 2-5 run with nobody aboard. Tim Raines, solo home run, lead the first. Here's Kenny Rogers. In and out as a starter. Joe Torre still perplexed. Sometimes Kenny looks great, sometimes he does not. Okay, David Wells looks pretty darn good. Strikeout number 3 as he rings up Amaral. Barricades this inning. We move to the bottom of the third with Rock Range 2 up front.
Update from Comiskey. Wilson Alvarez on the mound. Wilson, what are you looking at? You should be concentrating on Mike Sims. Bases loaded jam. White Sox in a huge hole. They won a one-run pitcher's duel last night. They're down 4-0 on that grand slam in the first.
All right, Gary, thank you. An interesting 11-game homestand for, boy, it's still April, but Terry Bevington perhaps on the hot seat in Chicago already. Joe Girardi, Tim Raines, Wade Boggs to lead off the third, a 1-0 game. Girardi with a sore shoulder. He went into the season, Buck, kind of figuring he would go right up the wickets and off the bag. Come the Bonte, hit to right center field, but Girardi almost went for 2. My goodness. Off the rubber, off the bag. Did he call that shot? That was a true banker.
Well, Espinosa really had to hustle to retrieve the ball into shallow right field. Girardi runs well. And watch this comebacker. Martinez dances out of the way. He left that ball up in the strike zone. Watch it hit the bag. Boom. And bounces over Espinosa's head. And Girardi has thoughts of going to second. Look at him turn around the bag at first. And then sees Espinosa retrieve it and throws the brakes on.
So here's Timmy Raines, who led off the game with a home run. Now, if you're scoring at home, and Buck, I want you to look at my scorebook here. You know, you're supposed to draw the line the way the ball goes, like a single to right. You make the line to the right. Or I had to do it up, straight, and to the right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You score, you're supposed to put the direction the ball went. Well, I went two directions. 8 ball in the side pocket off the bank. Score is, I had Rapote in there. We had a bank shot. It's kind of a, Marty Aronoff suggests, because I'm still trying to get done with the NFL draft, a post then corner route into the flank. The Raines with a 16th leadoff home run as the offensive star thus far, and there's a strike, 1-1. Hey, you figure Timmy Raines, well, how many home runs has he hit? Of course, he's close to 800 stolen bases. That's the number you know, but 156. That's more than you might think that Raines has hit.
Well, he's got some pop. His nickname is Rock, and he is as solid as a rock. And he put a charge in that 2-0 fastball in the first inning.
One thing the Yankees can do at this part of the lineup is maybe hit and run. Girardi can certainly move for a catcher. Probably has the best wheels of just about any catcher in the game now. Raines can handle the bat, and Boggs behind him. This is a part of the order that they might do some of that with. And, of course, even with 2 strikes, that was one of the things that Joe Torre did so much last year. I've got a veteran team, and I'm not afraid to hit and run or run and hit with 2 strikes on it because I know my guys will make contact. Was one of the great things about this club last year. They don't choose here to do it, and Raines fouls it back. But that was unsung last year.
You can remember back to the great Baltimore series they had. They squeezed in a couple of runs. They had double steals with Darryl Strawberry and Tim Raines. And Joe Torre, he wasn't too shy. He'd do whatever it took to manufacture some runs at times. They don't have what you would just consider out-and-out speed in their lineup.
No.
But they can do some base running, and they can open up some holes on the infield.
Raines hits this one. It's under center field. Back goes Griffey. Long way to the track. Makes the catch at the end of the track. Girardi tags, and he'll get into second base. How about a 390-foot out for the leadoff man, Timmy Raines? Let's hit it over 390 feet to Gary Miller.
Chris, an update from the Orioles and Twins. Bob Tewksbury giving up only 1 home run all year. B.J. Surhoff had not hit any. Changes both of those statistics. Peter Gaviglio follow with one of his own. Back-to-back Jackets, 2-0 Birds. Back to you.
Yankee with a pair the last couple nights, huh?
Now they've got a deep lineup just like this Yankee team. You know, we mentioned Girardi at first base. There's a great example of his awareness on the bases. He saw Griffey was going to make that play, tagged at first, and moved into scoring position on the out.
Wade Boggs will take his share of pitches and looks at ball one. Earlier this year, remember Girardi, we talked about his speed. He stole home on the front end of a double steal. First catcher to do so since the guy we just saw Gary show a highlight of, B.J. Sherlock. Did it in '92. The last Yankee catcher to steal home. Now that's tougher. We have to go a little bit farther back than '92. This guy actually built like Girardi. Jake Gibbs,
University of Mississippi.
pretty good football player.
Yes, sir.
Didn't think it was Yogi or Elston Howard. Jake Gibbs could move a little bit, or Thurman. Didn't think it was him. Got his 1-on-1 to Blackty. You ever steal home?
Are you serious?
No, I'm just asking. I mean, you played 17 years.
No. They coaxed me down the line.
What, they sprinkle some food at the plate? I mean, what do you mean they coax you down the line? There's a strike on the inside corner. They put some cheese down there and say, come on, yeah, Buck, yeah, Buck.
Can you imagine Whitey Herzog putting on a double steal with me at third?
I'm just asking. Just a thought.
Now this guy can run.
Yes.
Here's where Boggs gets tough with 2 strikes.
Now Martinez will be nowhere near the plate on that one. The count is 2-2. Just to finish off the Girardi running portion. I mean, last year he stole 13 bases. That's a pretty good number for a catcher. As you look at the scores from around the majors, Giants are leading 5-1. Some of us have our eyes peeled to that one. Boggs, there again, what you talked about, 2 strikes, just getting a piece.
Well, I mentioned earlier that around the batting cage today, I asked Wade Boggs for his scouting report, and he says pitch and sink. Dennis Martinez throws everything, and you see that he has to break out the emergency swing to foul that ball off. He always reminds himself to stay back.
Out of the glove of Davis, fires across. Flowers is able to make the stretch. That was a good piece of hitting, really, by Boggs. He got some mustard on it. Davis stayed with it. Girardi holds 2 outs.
Well, the ball was away from Boggs, and watch Davis. He gloves the ball, but then when he hits the dirt jars the ball out of his glove. But he gets to his feet in time to utilize that strong arm and throw out Wade Boggs by a step.
So 2 down, and that'll bring up Bernie Williams. Grounded to short in the first inning. Boggs 0 for 1 now with a walk in the first. Now what a famous setting. You take a look at the NY facade here at Yankee Stadium. I know it's not convenient to get here, not in the very least. But I tell you, Buck, I say this every time we do a game here. When you sit inside, and I know we don't have the biggest booth in the history of broadcasting, but when you sit inside Yankee Stadium, I don't know, it's just a very special place.
So many great teams, so many great ball games have played here over the years. Oh, he may have gotten away with a pitch right there. Dan Wilson wanted that pitch inside, and the ball got away from Martinez, and it moved to the outer half of the plate. Take a look at the catcher here. See Wilson slide to the inside. Martinez leaves it up and out over the plate, and they're lucky that Williams didn't get on top of that one. Dan Wilson is really exaggerating his movement behind the plate, trying to make sure that Dennis Martinez locates his pitches. He wants a pitch off the plate. He moves to the outside part of the plate.
Girardi, second base. 2 outs. Unheralded superstar. Here's one. Down and in for a ball, 1-1.
I always used to like that pitch as a catcher, to make a hitter move his feet, because it takes generally a pitch or two before he can get settled again. If you throw it up around his letters, most good hitters will just duck out of the way, and they've got their foothold, and they move right back in. But you make him move his feet, and he's got to adjust again. Kind of like he's got to re-grip in the batter's box. Boy,
This is
Dennis
like
is taking a long time.
I mean, this is like a stare down here. I mean, Dennis at times can move right along when he's pitching, but Larry Young had to say, you know, you've done this before here, Dennis. Let's get to the plate. First, let's get to our Sunday Night Baseball, which will be our Sunday night game of the week. Florida and Houston. Expected to have Kevin Brown on the hill for Florida, as good as they come these days, against Jeff Brown, Paper Bagwell, and the NL Central leading Houston Astros. From the Dome at 8 Eastern, 5 on the West Coast. That's 2 o'clock in Hawaii, now the unofficial home of Sunday Night Baseball.
So if Houston wins, you're going to send your resume in to be a manager?
I don't know. Larry Gertner is the first place squad. I didn't think of that. I asked you if you'd stolen home. No, I think I'll leave that to others. Just to try to get rid of me? Is that basically where you're going with it?
Just a thought.
Managing maybe like the Nippon Ham Fighters or somebody? No, I'll think about it, no. Did he go? Yes. Count is 2-2. Rich Garcia is at first tonight. Dale Ford, the umpire, at second. Mike Riley is at third.
Williams went after that curveball too late. He recognized it was down and in, and he couldn't check his swing.
Well, Joe Torre was a broadcaster, and he did okay as a manager, winning the series. Strike 3 on the corner. Wow, some pitching. It took a while. Now Dennis Martinez charges off the mound. The heavy metal of the Mariners coming up when we come back in the 4th. Run by Timmy Raines. Bottom of the 1st inning, and the Yankees lead at 1-0 behind one-hit pitching of David Boomer Wells. Which team should I apply for, by the way?
Well, I don't know. I think it's open.
Open, yeah. Wide open. Alex Rodriguez, Junior Griffey, Edgar Martinez. Oh, Wells pulled a chain on that one, and Rodriguez way ahead of it. Alex ran out to second base his first time up. Wells' 6th start as a New York Yankee. His first start at Oakland went 7 innings, gave up 6 hits, just 1 run. But outside of that one, this by far the most impressive in his brief career in pinstripe.
Boy, I tell you, he's got it going right now. He dropped that slow hook over, and Rodriguez swung through it, and then he changed the inside corner with a fastball.
43 pitches, Buck. 33 of them have been strikes. Wow, he exploded low and away, and Rodriguez is gone. Wow, that brings up Ken Griffey with 13 home runs, and all the talk of Roger Maris. I asked him before the game, what would be his perfect script for the 97 season?
If I wrote a script for the season, it would be Mariners win the pennant, and that's it. I mean, I don't think about hitting the home runs. If I hit, 62 or whatever, and we don't win, that's just an individual thing. But if I hit 30 and we win the pennant, and I get to do what the Yankees did last year, then I'm happy.
And when he talked about pennant, you could see his face just light up.
Listen, my dad has 3 rings. I'd like one. Not one of Dad's.
One of his own. That's what guys play for.
They got a good chance. They have a good chance. They have Facero to go along with Randy Johnson, and if they get Moyer looking like last night, Ayala and Charlton be pretty good in the pen. We know they have the hitting. They have a very good chance. Facero off to a great start. Ripped by Griffey. Foul. 4-0 start. But, of course, he says it's nice to know that I'm pitching and I'm going to get runs at Facero. So I can go out and not be so exact. And Griffey Jr., of course, with 13 home runs and 30 RBIs. He's one of the guys that gives him the runs.
Well, the Mariners are 3rd in baseball in runs scored. They're averaging over 6 runs a game. That makes an awful lot of pitchers very happy.
Little chopper, though, by Junior. Wells going to have to hustle over. Can't make the play. The throw is behind him from Tino. And as soon as Griffey was motoring, that was going to be touchy for the Yankees. I'm going to go get a hit out of that one.
Yeah, they had a chance to get him if Tino Martinez leads David Wells. This will give you a good look at it. Wells knows immediately it's going to be a foot race, and he's got to hustle. Look at Griffey hustling down the line, and Tino's throw is behind David Wells. He has to reach back forward. Had he led him, they may have had a shot at getting Junior at first. There's another thing that Junior does pretty well is run, and you can see Wells is there, but he's got to reach back and wait for the ball, and that allows Griffey to beat it out.
Well, we didn't see home run number 14, but we saw a 75-foot single. Both kind of little dribblers, both hits that Wells has allowed. The ground ball by Buhner underneath the glove of Duncan, and then this one. But to put a guy on, and this potent Mariner lineup can explode at any moment. Certainly Edgar Martinez, the 2-time batting champion, can do so. Edgar grounded a short his first time up. Taking a long look at the signs from John McLaren. Courtesy toss at this point to keep Junior aboard.
Well, he's 2 for 2 so far this year in stolen bases.
Well, he could steal many more, obviously, but with this power-packed lineup, it's why send it. Junior now among 117 players that have hit 250 home runs. Halfway to that 500 mark. They're only 15 there. 4th youngest player to hit the 250 home run mark. And the 3 ahead of him who were younger than Junior. Jimmy Fox did it just past his 26th birthday. Eddie Matthews early in his 26th year, and Mel Ott. A, members of the 500 home run club. B, members of the Hall of Fame. And the 2 also closest to Griffey, Mantle and Aaron, right behind Junior, who did it in 27 plus. Also 500 homer members, Hall of Fame members. So, you know, you don't like to predict, but boy, if you want to look at the charts, I would say that you could make some deductions at this point. Count is 1-1 to Edgar Martinez. Good pitch. Fastball high and tight and got the corner.
Looked like Edgar had breaking ball on his mind right there because he didn't even flinch. Watch his reaction. He doesn't even move. He looks like he's looking breaking ball. You can see that fastball had a good portion of the inside part of the plate. Good hitters will look for pitches throughout an at-bat. Let's see if he stays on it. One thing you can't do if you're David Wells is let Ken Griffey get into your head too much when he's at first base and forget about dealing with Edgar Martinez at the plate.
Foul the bat. We'll do it again at 1-2.
David Wells has allowed 7 stolen bases in 7 attempts so far this year. Last year, base stealers were 26 of 30. Well, Stottlemyre obviously a little concerned about that number, but number one on his mind is making sure that the pitcher gets the most out of his delivery. If you have to make adjustments just to neutralize a running game, it may take away from the stuff of your pitcher.
Fouls it back. We'll do it again. One brief note on Mel. He had one of his Yankee records were tied. Andy Pettit, 5 wins in the month of April. He was the only one.
Well, I had a chance to hit against Mel. Never hit against Andy. But Mel had some nasty stuff.
He was
had
nasty.
A sinker. That thing would break about a foot.
Got a good battle going on right here as Martinez got a little bit better wood to that one. Kind of remains at 1 and 2. Wells on his game tonight. Obviously, Martinez certainly knows all the portions of the strike zone. And with the figure of Junior Griffey with the good wheels at first. The game inside of baseball. Ripped to left field. Actually didn't get the good wood on it, which fooled Timmy Raines, playing deep on it, and Martinez with a single. So he battled his way for that base hit, and now the Mariners have 2 aboard for Jay Buhner.
Well, David Wells tried both sides of the plate, up, down, in, and out, and finally tried to put Edgar away with an inside fastball, and he fights it off. That ball is down and in, tough pitch, and he just kind of serves it into left field. A tough 2-strike base hit.
Edgar actually had the audacity to drop to 299 before that base hit, but he's back above that mark. That's his Mendoza line, 300.
Pretty high plateau.
Yep. So 2 on now for Jay Buhner. As we told you earlier, has been the member of this murderer's row of the Mariners. He's been scuffling out of their gates. Played by Girardi to keep that breaking ball in front of him. Buhner had the first hit. A grounder in the hole between second and first that went under the glove of Mariano Duncan. See, I mean, look at the figures, and still, though, the 78 RBIs, you can see more than 3 other teams. 2 of them, the Cardinals and the Dodgers, are pretty good. Buhner, you know, that sticks out like a sore thumb, but he will find his groove. There's no question about that. Wells just missed inside. Now it's 2-0.
Well, this is the count where Jay really has to make sure he doesn't try to do too much with it. Just put a good pass on the ball. Make sure you get a good pitch to hit. Don't get over anxious just because it's 2-0 and swing at a fastball that's not the one you really want.
Oh, he wanted the downs on that one, but just as we discussed, big swing, strike 1.
It was a little bit up. Got a little over anxious. He saw the fastball, expected the fastball, and you can see that that's a tough pitch for him to get on top of. That's what happens when you know that you're not really swinging it real good right now, and you have a tendency to swing at too many pitcher pitches. Wells got that pitch earlier in the game. Larry Young gave him that low inside fastball a couple of times early in the game, and that's why Wells expected to get a called strike here. Makes a good pitch this time down with the fastball, but he didn't get the call.
Now Buhner looking at a 3-1 offering with Griffey at second and Martinez at first. 1-0 Yankees. Top of the 4th. Raines has stole a home run to lead the game.
What he's got to say to himself now is make him get it down. Good pitch by Wells as he ran it in on the hands of Buhner. mentioned how Joe Torre admires David Wells for his competitiveness. You will not intimidate David Wells.
No.
He'll come right at you.
Some of the fans on their feet for this 3-2 pitch. And now, like Dennis Martinez did, Wells' frequency to the plate is slowed just a tad. Well, Dennis slowed down so much against Bernie Williams, he eventually got him to K. And Wells do the same thing with Buhner. Runners moving. Sky. So everybody's got to go back now. Foul ground. Boggs makes the catch. So that was interesting. Had him moving on 3-2 and 1 out. And everybody has to go back with the foul pop-up.
Well, you see the runners going, and Lou Piniella may have felt if he could open up a hole, maybe Buhner could get himself a hit in this situation, drive in a run. But Jay gets underneath it and pops it straight up into foul territory. Boggs moves underneath it. Look at David Wells there to help him out. Well, when Jay Buhner heats up, some pitchers are going to pay.
Some steam comes off the head when he heats up, but so far, not that way. This will be Mike Flowers. Flew out to center field his first time up, off-speed pitch. Up top, ball 1. Wells' own Flowers, at least. That goes back 2 years. Remember Flowers' National League last season. Dropped that off-speed pitch in, but just missed as well. It's 2-0.
Former Yankees on this Mariner team. Jay Buhner, Mike Flowers, Russ Davis, who we mentioned earlier. There's a man that's anxious to get his stroke.
But whether he's up or not, he's into the game at every moment, and he's anxious for Flowers to get his stroke right now. There's a good pitch. Fastball low away on the corner for a strike, 2-1.
David Wells has found this outside corner most of the night. They throw that two-seam fastball, but it sinks down and away for the right hand. Well, I tell you, anytime a pitcher has that kind of strike ratio, generally look up at the scoreboard and he'll have a pretty good game for him, just like David Wells. 3 hits.
2-2 now to Flowers. So with Griffey at second and Edgar Martinez at first, Lou Piniella saying, what about this part of my order? Can I get these guys home? The crowd always into the game here in New York, aren't they? This place isn't full, but it sure sounded full. Big strikeout for David Wells. His fifth. 1-0 New York. Dog deep there. Timmy Raines gone deep here. That's why the Yankees lead it by the count of 1-0. And Atlanta, 18-6. Boy, they really were derailed by that World Series loss, weren't they? We begin with the, perhaps, the new, well, he's the record holder right now for RBIs Major League history in the month of April. Tino Martinez with 33. Junior has 30. Remember, Moise Alou is 29. He could have a big game tonight for Florida. You never know. Now, I mean, I'm not trying to cheapen what Tino's done at all, because 33 RBIs in any month is tremendous. They didn't always start the season on April 1st. Some of the old-timers never really had 30 days to work on that mark. But so what?
Best ever.
Yep.
No matter what you say, he's had the best month ever.
And we put up the graphic. We were here right around this time last season. And he had a home run. Was it against Cleveland, wasn't it, Buck?
I think so.
And he was hitting about 210 at the time. There's a grounder in the hole. Nice dive by Rodriguez. Doesn't throw. What a play to get to that ball.
Well, remember, he's defending against the left-handed batter, and he was a step up the middle, but he still gets a good enough jump on the ball to put leather on it. Talk about the two shortstops in this ball game, and I tell you, they are pretty spectacular in the field.
So back to Tino just for a moment. I mean, the fans were on him and Girardi last year. Girardi replaced Stanley. Tino, of course, replacing legend Don Mattingly. But he had a 3-run home run in that game against Cleveland, and the fans beckoned him out. Here's O'Neill, first pitch hitting. Rodriguez. Espinosa to Blauer. Third double play ball induced by Dennis Martinez. And so the bases are clear. But the New York fans said, "We love you." He had a curtain call, and it was at that moment that he felt, "I'm a Yankee. The fans are with me." And boy, they've been with him ever since.
Well, they sure have, and he had a great year last year. A little bit of a disappointment, I'm sure, the fact that he didn't get to play all the time in the World Series, but you'll never hear anything from Tino Martinez. First class.
Cecil Fielder singled in the first inning. Cecil, of course, quite a ruckus in the offseason. Really in March. Oh, he's hit. And you could say that Dennis works inside, which he does, but judging by his expression, I don't think that's where it was supposed to go.
Well, that might be part of the act, too.
Yeah, you're right.
He's sliding inside and watch this ball move up and in. Remember, he hit Derek Jeter in the ribs earlier in the ball game, and Cecil Fielder takes one in the shoulder. And then Martinez looks away as if to say, "Man, I'm really sorry I did that," but who knows? He's always had a reputation of coming inside, and he's hit a lot of hitters throughout his career.
Well, he's hit 5 this year now. All right, it's only the 5th start. Let's just have a look at that. I don't think we're going to find that. I wonder how many he has hit in his career. I wonder what the record is. All right, we've sent everybody scurrying with those 2 requests.
Well, I remember years ago when he was pitching in Baltimore, he hit Willie Horton, and Willie Horton came after him, and he chased him all around the field.
I remember that now. The big stat sheet that I have here doesn't have. But we get our best men on it. I wonder what the record is. That's wherever Dennis is compared to the lifetime record holder. Derek Jeter, Rodriguez won't get this one. Central to second, Jeter to first. So the Yankees have something going here with 2 down.
There's a little payback for Derek Jeter, who was hitting the ribs the last time up against Dennis Martinez. This time up, he hangs in tough and hits the breaking ball right back up the middle. Rodriguez can't make a play on it. Oh, the Yankees have something going with 2 outs.
So that'll be Martinez against Mariano Duncan, who grounded to short to end the 2nd inning.
Big surprise, he was swinging.
Yeah.
Yeah. This guy has no strike zone. There's no scouting report on Duncan. He is a free swinger. Top of the helmet to the top of the shoes. And that's a pretty good indication of the type of hitter he is. 18 walks in his last 728 at bat. He is not Eddie Yost.
No. No. with two aboard, looking to improve their 1-0 lead. Bottom of the fourth, Chris Berman along with Buck Martinez here at ESPN. So glad you could join us on Wednesday Night Baseball as we end the month of April the way we began it. With the Yankees and the Mariners, two teams hoping to play late October baseball. Pitch just missed two. Both pitchers feeling maybe a little squeezed at this point. I don't know.
Well, David Wells has been given some pretty liberal calls on the corners, and Martinez is staring in at Larry Young as if to say, how come Wells gets those pitches and I don't?
Chop to Rodriguez, the shovel to Espinosa, and the Mariners have wriggled free of the Yankees rally. We have played 4 1-0 pitch strikers here in New York, where the Yankees lead the Mariners 1-0, and we give you baseball on ESPN, and we certainly give you hockey. Wilson, Davis, and Espinosa due up for the Mariners, and the conference semifinal, the next round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Friday night on ESPN, Anaheim against the Detroit Red Wings. The Ducks and the Wings. And on ESPN2, I think they'll be talking a little puck here in the Big Apple as the Rangers take on the New Jersey Devils. Two teams that have won the Cup last. Colorado's defending champ of the Rangers. New Jersey before that. That should be a great, great series. Hope you watched the hockey on ESPN last night, because there are very few things in sports like 7th games in any Stanley Cup series. 0-2 count to Wilson, and Wells is outside. But Ottawa-Buffalo series, great last night, won by Derek Plant, Sabres. In overtime, Edmonton upset Dallas last night in overtime. And the Ducks moved on in the 7th game over the Yotes. Hope you've enjoyed all our coverage on ESPN and ESPN2. We'll be there for just about all the pucks that are dropped. It's our privilege to bring you the Stanley Cup playoffs. Spoken by a couple of hockey fans up here in the booth. A 2-2 pitch to Dan Wilson. A little bit low. Count is full.
Wayne Gretzky had a big shot in the arm with a hat trick against the Panthers.
On the same night that Mario Lemieux had that moment in Pittsburgh, and the same night that Alfredson had the overtime goal for Ottawa. It was great. The hockey act has been great. Hope you've been watching it. Yeah, Gretzky, the natural hat trick. And our congratulations, by the way, to Mario Lemieux on just thank you for all the joy that you brought us sports fans, Mario. The Penguins were eliminated by the Flyers. Flyers Sabres, the other series in the East. Avalanche and Oilers, the other series in the West. We have a 16-2 game like we had second game of the season. We'll take an inning and we'll talk some puck. But right now, 1-0 baseball game here in the 5th. Or a goaltending duel, between Wells and Martinez.
Well, I tell you, Dan Wilson's having a terrific at-bat. He has fouled off a couple of breaking pitches away, and he's fighting off that inside fastball. I mean, here's a guy that came over to Seattle with a reputation of being a fine defensive player, but has worked hard on his hitting and has improved to be a very good hitter. As Chris mentioned earlier, 80 RBIs last year, almost 500 at-bats. A legitimate threat.
Following in the shoes of another University of Minnesota backstop. Right up the middle for a base hit. Terry Steinbach. Minnesota player. Wilson with a base hit. Let's go over to Gary Miller.
Chris, Dave Tailgater has been cruising along. He had a 6-3 lead coming to the bottom of the 6th when David Justice continued his American League onslaught. Line drive homer, his 7th of the year. Manny Ramirez is followed with a home run. It's suddenly a 6-5 game.
All right, Gary, thank you. Boy, justice with the Tribe, Lofton with the Braves. My goodness, yes, change of leagues has really bothered me.
Boy, Dave Justice out to say, hey, I'm still a pretty good player coming into tonight's action, hitting .375.
Russ Davis tries to curl one down the line, but it'll get in the seats for a foul ball as Wilson was moving. The Mariners trying to get something going with the bottom of their order.
Well, these two ball clubs, I think, match up very well. They're players up and down the lineup. They can do a lot of things for you. Russ Davis trying to establish himself as a true everyday third baseman. You got guys like Buhner and A-Rod, Edgar Martinez, Ken Griffey Jr. A power-laden lineup, 1 through 9.
Well, in talking with players as that ball misses inside one-on-one players on both teams, the robbery, obviously, 95 was just punctuated with the divisional series. Doc's no-hitter last year. Sweet, you know, the Yankees' trouble out at Seattle, although they busted through in a big way. That second game of the season, they hadn't won out there for quite a while. Players say, you know, playing this other team keeps me on my toes. It's a long season. I mean, I'm a professional. I play 162 games, but we know when we play the Yankees, conversely, the Yankee players say, when we play the Mariners, we're on our toes.
Well, they've got a lot of good players on both sides, but they also have a lot of real good people.
Yes.
And they're good ball clubs. They're championship caliber ball clubs.
Davis swings at a breaking ball, 1-2. They're both managed by those that have had success in the National League. Managers, Lou Piniella, of course, won the World Championship with the Reds in '90. Joe Torre managed a long time in the National League. Braves, Cards, Mets. Guys that understand maybe it's a little bit different, even though they're in the American League here, that they approach it a little different than some of the other American League managers. A little more aggressive, a little more scrappy. You know, they have big hitters. Certainly the Mariners do. Maybe that's part of it too, Buck.
Well, Lou Piniella knows he's got the offense to battle anybody, and you can see how they've dominated the Yankees the last couple of years. 2-2 this season. He said, I don't have too many concerns about my offense when you've got guys like Ken Griffey Jr. to build your team around. Jay Buhner, we talked about his early struggles, but he's going to deliver. And no telling where A-Rod is going to end up.
Well, Dennis Martinez figures, boy, I have 2-17 lifetime against the Yankees. Maybe if I'm on the Mariners, that'll get me off the schneid. Off-speed pitch, Davis chops it foul. Remains at 1-2. How about Dennis, 42 years of age on May 14th? I mean, are you kidding me? And he'll be twice as old on May 14th as his shortstop. All right?
Twice as old as Derek Jeter.
Derek, 22, so 20 years older than Derek Jeter after he has his birthday. I mean, maybe Jeter one day be a 40-year-old shortstop, huh? I think he and A-Rod love the game that much that they would love to play that long. You need a little luck, you need a lot of skill. Dennis certainly has that. They're on the short end of a 1-0 stick right now, and I'd like to see Russ Davis and company get going, but Wells has busted the curveball. Strikeout number 6. Davis will sit down and he'll bring up the number 9 hitter, Alvaro Espinosa.
What David Wells did with his curveball is he threw it a bit slower, and you can see how Russ Davis was out on that front foot. Wells had tried the hard curveball. Davis kept fouling it off, and that time he took something off the curveball and got the strikeout. That's number 6. Pretty good pitching matchup here. Only run of the ball game came in the first inning when Martinez fell behind Tim Raines, threw him a 2-0 fastball, and Raines hit his 16th career leadoff home run.
Ripped by Espinosa, pans to diving Boggs. Wilson around second will easily lope into third. Raines in the corner up with it. double for Espinosa, so the bottom of the lineup has things going for the Mariners. There are runners in scoring position with just one out.
By the time Tim Raines got over to the foul line and retrieved the ball, Espinosa had a double. He went up to the plate expecting to get a first-pitch fastball, got it, and even though it was in a good location, he hooks it by a diving Wade Boggs. He was thinking about that first-pitch fastball, got the pitch he was looking for, and came through with a double.
So Rich Amaral up. Torrey has seen Wells retire Amaral both times. And Rodriguez, Griffey due up after Amaral. This becomes a huge, huge out. Lifetime against the Boomer. He's had his troubles. Wilson at third base. Espinosa at second base. Mariners trying to bust through against Wells. Follow the right field. Medium deep. O'Neill is a good arm. Wilson tags. Here's the throw to the plate. Not in time. Safe. We are tied at 1. Espinosa moves up to third.
And the ball was hit so deep, even with that strong arm, O'Neill couldn't throw out the Mariner catcher, Dan Wilson. Good at bat by Rich Amaral. He got a pitch up in the zone, drives it to deep right field. You can see O'Neill setting up, knowing there's going to be a play at the plate, and delivers a strong throw. It's just too much to ask of him to throw him out from that deep in right field. John McLaren helping out Dan Wilson as he breaks as soon as O'Neill catches the ball. So one hop strike to the plate, but not in time.
Interesting slide by Wilson there, just touching it with his left hand. And then they're going to appeal a third. And Mike Riley said, nice try, but no. Why not? That appeal is free. Like in hockey, you check the curve of the stick, and if you're wrong, they give you a 2-minute penalty. As my dear departed Hartford Whalers did in a key game the last week of the season. Down by a goal, needed to win the game against Ottawa. Oops, 3 minutes to go. Let's check a stick. Didn't work. Trying to tie the game, skating a man short. Rodriguez looks at a strike. Wells pulled the chain on that one. It's 1-1. Inside, low, blocked by Girardi with, of course, Espinosa at third base. Represented the go-ahead run.
Well, when you see your catcher really surround the ball in the dirt like that, it gives you a lot of confidence that you can go ahead and snap off a nasty hook, not be concerned about it getting away from the catcher. It's very important. You don't want your pitcher on the mound thinking about, man, if I bounce this, it might go back to the screen and cost me a run.
Oh, came in with some heat. Rodriguez was not looking for it. Count is 2-2. Crowd up. Chop to Boggs. Waits on it. Fires in time. Rodriguez is gone. But the Mariners have knotted it. Sac fly by Amaral delivers Dan Wilson. And we'll start it over again. Knotted at 1. Heading to the bottom of the 5th. Now for the Indians in Cleveland, as they have tied that game with the Oakland A's. All right, here we go in a 1-1 game, bottom of the 5th inning, and Dennis Martinez working with Girardi, Raines, and Boggs. 9-1-2. Girardi with a double doinker off the rubber, then caromed off the second base bag into right field. He thought about a double. Now he rips this one a one-hopper to Davis. Better off doinking it off the rubber. Well, that was a smash. Davis was there.
Well, there you go, Chris. You were wondering how many batters that Dennis had hit. 117 throughout his career. This is his 20th season.
Well, I'd always heard that this guy was the best pitcher of all time, the man that hit the most batters. That may be one of the reasons, intimidation. The big train, Walter Johnson, along with everything else. 203 hit batters. And if you weren't getting hit, you were getting struck out. And from everything you've read, I know Cy Young at 511. And
Big Train. He was
Big Train was
dominant.
Supposedly the best. Raines led off the first inning with a home run, his 16th leadoff home run in his career. And that's the Yankee run. Sorry, Buck.
Chris, you talk about pitchers hitting batters, and there was a time when the pitchers were the intimidators, where you would step into the box and not dig a deep hole.
And excuse me, check swing that Martinez is over there quickly, gets the flip from Blowers. Dennis is 2 wins away from Juan Marichal's #1 spot on the Latin American win list. And when it comes to my personal favorite pitchers, doesn't get much better than Marichal and Luis Dion, by the way.
Juan Marichal with that high leg kick, 243 wins, and he threw everything from all different angles. Very difficult to pick up the ball. Some great years, a couple of 27-win seasons for the Giants.
Wade Boggs is up and looks at strike one. The best thing about Marichal, a lot of times you would read in the paper, Juan Marichal pitched a 3-0 shutout, scattered 9 hits, but walked no one. Very as good a control pitcher as there was, Juan Marichal. The Dominican dandy. Hall of Famer. Luis Dion not in the Hall of Fame and have a tough time getting in, but boy, when he was on that run with the Red Sox, he used to sit out in the bleachers and he'd take that swagger in with the chaw and the almost, might as well have been smoking a cigar walking in from that bullpen to start the first inning. Louis. Rodriguez and Griffey almost collide, but Rodriguez makes the call. So 1-2-3 inning for Dennis Martinez after his teammates tied the game. 8 pitches, we play 5, and Junior will come up looking for a little longer ball than this. Back in the Bronx, top of the 6th, Boomer to Junior as we begin the part of the order for the Mariners. 1-1 game. Griffey, Martinez, and Buhner against David Wells. Each team 1 run and 5 hits, no errors. Identical box scores through 5. Line scores, I should say. Wrist foot foul.
Chris, you remember you mentioned that Wells was going to try to pitch Ken Griffey Jr. inside. He struck him out inside in the first inning. That time, he was sitting all over an inside fastball. He thought about doing some damage. He looked inside, got it, but all he can do is hook it into the seats out of play.
Count is 1-1. So Junior, with his 13 home runs this month, a major league record for April. Also owns the record for home runs through the month of May, 22, done in 94. The home run through the month of June, 32. As well as a couple of other home run records. He hit home runs in 8 straight games. It ties him with Don Mattingly and Dale Long. And then kind of an obscure one last year, 13 3-run home runs. So he's already in the books 5 times in the home run department. Not to mention 251 lifetime. Foul just below us. count is full.
What a swing he has at this pitch. A 3-1 count. He's turning it loose, and watch how he gets through the hitting zone. Man, he exploded. That ball got in on him a little bit. He hit it back over the plate a bit. But watch his head. Right as he gets set, he'll take one last little move and square up his eyes at David Wells. Strike 3.
This crowd is into this ball game. I'll tell you, they was cheering last night when Junior went 0 for 5. The Mariners did win it. They're 5 in the 8th, but here's the pitch by Wells that just exploded up.
A high fastball on the outside part of the plate, and David Wells has had good stuff all night long. That's number 7 for Wells.
And as you point out, 2 of them against Griffey. So now we start Edgar Martinez off speed. As high as a Yankee, of course, Wells has only pitched 5 times going into this is 8. Career high is 11 strikeouts, so he has a chance to get to those sort of numbers if he continues. There's a strike that Edgar did not like, 1-1. Martinez grounded short, faces to left. Count is 2-1.
Take a look at the defense against Edgar Martinez. It is exactly spread out. Tells you that Martinez goes foul line to foul line.
Goes nowhere on that one. The count is 2-2. Oh, Wells is really mixing it up against some of the big hitters here.
Now, these guys came into the game batting .334 against left-handed pitchers. Wells has held them in check with just 5 hits.
Broken back, grounded to short. Jeter, Martinez, 2 out. David Wells said he'd really like to deliver here tonight. In front of my fans, in front of my manager. Really, it's about time for me to do something here in this park as a Yankee, and he thus far has done it tonight. As we told you about the tattoo that he has on his arm for his son Brandon. He lost his mom this past January. He's very close to his mom. Brought him up alone in San Diego. Mother Ann. And tattooed a picture of her, or a likeness of her, at the age of 3. On his left chest, right above his heart. There's a 2-out base hit by Jay Buhner, who was a pair of hits tonight, trying to get himself off the schneid. But had a friend of his talking about Wells' tattoo, a likeness of his mom, 3 years old. And also on his back is a tattoo of his grandmother. Picture. His mom, his grandma, and his son. He needs frames. Or film. David's a little different now, but he's enjoyable a guy to talk to, as we know in the majors. So Buhner at first, Flowers up with 2 outs. Flowers 0 for 2. Go to center field, struck out.
Well, both of these pitchers tonight have been able to throw strikes. They've pitched ahead, and then when they've gotten ahead, they have changed speeds effectively.
Blew that one past Flowers.
David said that problems he had in his earlier starts were a result of his falling behind. And then only his stubbornness continued to give him problems because he just kept pounding that fastball. And when he was behind, he kept getting hit. And he's been ahead all night long, and has been in the driver's seat.
One and two. And the crowd will get up again.
Come on, Boomer! Strike them all!
Strikeout number 8 for Wells. 1-1 game. Bottom of the 6th in a 1-1 game between the Mariners and the Yankees. Pitcher's duel between David Wells and Dennis Martinez. And ESPN celebrates our 15th year of coverage from the famed Kentucky Derby. Friday at 5, the Kentucky Oaks, nation's most prestigious event for 3-year-old fillies. And our special Saturday at 2 Eastern time from Churchill Downs. And then Saturday at 4:30 Eastern time, the Derby, presented by Bijan. ABC Sports, the 123rd run for the Roses. And of course, George Steinbrenner, the Yankee owner, has a horse running in the Derby, Concerto, listed at 10-1 today. And I guess what, tomorrow they'll have the draw for the post positions. You know, that's, I always try and get my that racing form a day early. That's one that you know who's into that? Zip Zimmer. I mean, I've meant to ask him before the game. What do you think? Who he likes? His horse? Well,
There's Zim.
I don't know if they're allowed to play anybody other than George's horse. Think about American Classic. Don Zimmer, yes, but the Kentucky Derby is where I was going. Late 6-5 Bernie Williams to start off the bottom of the 6th. So Williams aboard with none out, and that'll bring up the RBI machine, Tino Martinez.
You can bet that Lou Piniella is going to keep a close eye on Dennis Martinez now. The longest he's gone this season, 6 2/3. Lou, like so many managers around baseball, really concerned about the middle innings of the ball game before he can get to his setup guy and his closer.
Well, these teams have had interesting 3-game series. The Yankees coming from behind Monday, down 5-1. Cecil hit to make it 5-3, and they tied at 5, and Girardi hits the home run to win it 6-5 as Ayala and Charlton failed Piniella. Oh, there's a picker up to get by first base, and Bernie Williams safe at second. Hard to say. In the first game of the series, the Yankees came from way back. Yesterday, the Mariners exploded for 5 in the 8th. This one a little bit different. Plays like this can tip the balance.
Dennis makes a bad throw to first base in an attempt to pick off Bernie Williams. Espinosa retrieves the ball, and his throw to second is not in time. So a crucial error by Dennis Martinez moves Bernie Williams into scoring position.
And now Tino Martinez, with 33 RBIs in the month of April, a new major league mark, is looking for number 34. Fastball high and away. 1-0. Lou Piniella knows that, Mike Flowers is still in a learning process over at first base. Maybe that was part of the problem. Although the error does go to Dennis Martinez, as it should. And Flowers defensively is no Don Mattingly at this point. That's for sure.
Now the throw was into the runner. And that's a difficult aspect of learning first base. You know, you think you can just put a guy over there and first base is an easy place to play, but a lot of things happen around the bag at first. Flowers is a natural third baseman.
He was up, Tino thought, but back on the outside corner. Good ball game here in the Bronx. Each team with 1 run on 6 hits. Hit to center field. Griffey back up, plenty of room. Bernie Williams will tag, got the good wheels, and he's into third base. Let's go over to Gary Miller.
Eric Plunk in the game for the Indians. It's 6-all. Jose Canseco. Oh, he got one up and in, and Canseco belts his 5th home run of the year through the alleyway. McGuire is also at his 10th in this game. There's been a lot of home runs, but now the A's have a 7-6 lead.
The old Bash brothers doing it. McGuire through the scoreboard. Canseco through the alley.
Boy, he got to that pitch in a hurry, didn't he?
He did. Sneaking at Sally with the alley.
Lou Piniella out to talk to Dennis Martinez about their options here. They've got a left-handed batter in Paul O'Neill at the plate. Man on third base in less than 2 outs. Piniella wants to make sure that everybody understands the situation about how they're going to play it here. Martinez looks over Wilson's shoulder at the batter, O'Neill. 80 pitches here in the 6th inning. Just the 1 run so far. That was the home run to Tim Raines. The Yankees had many of these opportunities last night, and O'Neill was one of the guys that was guilty of leaving these guys on base with less than 2 outs. And all night long, Joe Torre said, you know what, this is going to come back to haunt us. And sure enough, it did last night. Cost them the game.
That's interesting. They're going to put O'Neill on and work the Cecil Fielder, the right-handed and the right-handed.
This is the type of thing that may get Cecil Fielder going. It's kind of like they're rattling his cage, saying, hey, Big Daddy, we don't think you can get it done.
Well, it's the intentional walk to get to Cecil Fielder. Lou even knows, okay, this is interesting.
Remember, Martinez has converted 3 double plays tonight. That's what Piniella's hoping for right now. He's going to put the left-handed hitter O'Neill on. First, they're going to see if they can
that
get
was interesting.
Bernie Williams napped it.
Yeah, why not? Dennis has thrown it everywhere. Third, first, the plate. Still have a ball to go here for the intentional pass. That's complete. So runners on the corners with 1 out for Cecil Fielder.
Cecil got off to a horrible start, but you can see what he's done lately. He's starting to heat up. He has hit into 4 double plays, and that's what Lou Piniella is hoping for right here.
Well, this crowd came to watch some baseball tonight. They're not just here eating popcorn. Here's the ball game, perhaps, at least to this point. Piniella with an interesting strategy. Will it backfire or will it pay off?
Martinez hit Fielder last time with a fastball up around his shoulder. You've got to believe that Cecil's thinking about the outer half of the plate now.
Ripped through the wickets of Russ Davis. Williams scores. O'Neill to third. Cecil to second. 2-1 Yankees. It'll go as an error to Russ Davis. an RBI for Cecil, but the Yankees have the lead.
This ball got too much of the inside part of the plate. Cecil hit a bullet to Russ Davis. He was right there, made a move for it, went off his glove for the air. Dennis Martinez got the ball. He was looking for a ball on the ground, but it gets by his third baseman.
So now the infield in to try and choke off the next potential run with O'Neill at third. Fielder at second. Derek Jeter looks at a fastball in the inside corner for a strike. Jeter also hit, as Fielder was, and singled. So Cecil, by the way, has been aboard all 3 times by different ways. And Russ Davis has got it going at the plate. As you can see, with 9 errors already. We're still in April. Fastball way inside, 1-1.
Derek Jeter snapped an 0 for 17 last time up with a single, and now he's got the infield defense coming in, so there's a lot of holes to shoot through there. What he wants to do now against Martinez is be patient and get a ball up and away from him that he can drive to the outfield. Get something airborne. That'll give you a good approach. Good job by Wilson.
Well, Piniella, of course, wanted more of a tapper, not a shot like that by Cecil, but really, he had the double play.
Yeah, that was the ball they were hopeful to keep him on the ground, and he got that shot to Davis, who wasn't able to make the play. It possibly could have been the 4th double play, but Cecil comes through and chases home the go-ahead run.
So Piniella gambled and won, but lost. A little blooper will drive in 2 for Jeter. Saw it off, and that'll be foul.
That's that tough pitch to lay off of, right in on your hand.
David Wells want to cool off on a cool night, but he enjoys having a lead. 8 strikeouts through 6 innings. According to his career high is 11. Joe Torre looking for win number 1,000 tonight. 1,000 as a skipper. Now the count is full to Jeter, with Mariano Duncan on deck. Martinez got the ball from Cecil he wanted, but had himself in a bit of a pickle with the errant pickoff throw to Bernie Williams. So the 2 errors play awfully costly to the Mariners this inning, to say the very least. Foul. Upper deck.
I don't know if I'd go away with Jeter right here in this situation if I were Martinez. With 2 strike
You are
rallies,
Martinez, by the way.
I would try to crowd him, make him make an adjustment to get the barrel of the bat to the ball. By going away, you kind of play into his hand, give him something that he can extend out on. Dan Wilson out talking to Dennis about where they want to go from here. A catcher has a tendency to see how well the batter is covering the plate better than the pitcher, because he can see how the batter extends out over the plate. So they've had their conference, and they're all set now to deal with this full count pitch to Derek Jeter.
Paul O'Neill at third, and Cecil Fielder is at second base. Both count to Derek Jeter. 1 run home, 2-1 Yankees. Bottom of the 6th. Infield in. Well, he heard you, because he certainly went inside, and Jeter fouled it back. Derek Lowe and Greg McCarthy, who's the left-hander, warming up in the pen. Presidente in El Pickle right now. Oh, good. It busted him inside.
That's the inside pitch. That's a very difficult pitch to get the barrel to, and Martinez, after showing outside, comes back inside with a sinking fastball, and Derek Jeter strikes out. Dan Wilson slides to the inside, emphasizes that target, and they get a huge strikeout of Derek Jeter.
Martinez no longer a real strikeout pitcher, but boy, that was huge. He has 3 tonight. Only had 5 Ks in his previous 4 starts. That a huge spot. And now Mariano Duncan has a chance to add some insurance. He's 0 for 2.
The thing with Duncan is you don't have to throw a real good strike. He's got a huge strike zone, and you still have a base open. So even though you started out behind in the count, you can still work to the corners. This guy is the epitome of a free swing. This is a similar problem the Yankees had last night. They were 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position.
There are 2 now. Ground ball is short. Rodriguez to Blowers. The run unearned, but nevertheless, the Yankees have grabbed a 2-1 lead heading to the top of the 7th. The Yankees have come out of the closet. They've grabbed the 2-1 lead here heading to the top of the 7th inning. Mariner fans in the crowd at the stretch going for the Mariners' 7th inning stretch. And the bottom of the order, which produced the tying run in the 5th inning, will have a go at it again. Dan Wilson led off with a single and came around to score in the 5th when Rich Amaral drove home with a sac fly to right field. So it's Wilson, Davis, who would like to make amends for that error, and Alvaro Espinosa. Pitch on the outside corner for a strike. 1-1.
This is a perfect night for a pitcher to work. Cool evening. Fatigue not a concern for David Wells. He still has real good velocity.
Fly ball slicing away from O'Neill. Long run, and he misplays it. It hops into the seats for a ground rule double. Now, again, that's a long, tough play. But it looked like either overran it or maybe it hit the glove.
I think he just flat out missed it. That ball was a curveball that was slicing away from Paul O'Neill in right field, and he slid. The wall is coming up. You see he breaks into a slide, but it actually went off his glove.
That's what I thought. It hit the fingers of the glove, and O'Neill, a pretty good defensive right fielder. I don't remember the catch he made in that 1-0 game in Game 5 against Atlanta, just as an example, the World Series. And that's to go for a double, Wilson's 8th. But again, Wilson is led off with a base hit to the bottom of the order for the Mariners tonight doing the work. Now, Russ Davis has not had a memorable night. A pair of strikeouts and, of course, the error. He flies this one to left. Jeter, a long run, and it'll be in the seat. Short left field. Jeter of the 3 out there. Raines and Jeter and Bonds. The only one really in the area, but that was gone. Jeff Nelson, one-time Mariner, came over with Tino Martinez in that trade. He's in the bullpen. The Yankees don't get cheated if they had a basketball team among their pitchers. I mean, you got David Wells there, Nelson 6'8", Pettit 6'5". I'm sure Andy could post up. Even Mel could probably, work the boards a little bit.
Graham Lloyd's down in that bullpen.
Yeah, I mean, the Yankees, I'd say, if they were in a off-season basketball, the pitching staff I got to think they could do pretty well. Probably. There's a shot. But plenty of room for Bernie Williams and Tim Raines. Williams makes the call. Wilson with the tag. It's a good throw, but not in time. So the Mariners have the tying run 90 feet from home. Let's get on over to Gary Miller.
Chris, taking the Metrodome when the Twins had tied it at 3 and they're having a 5th and a 6th. Brady Anderson looks like a bleeding single, but this is the Metrodome. It'll turn into a triple and score Mike Bordick, the rare time he was on base. That's still the start of Bob Tewksbury in there, but the Orioles are now taking a 4-3 lead. Back to you.
All right, Gary, thank you. One-run game here, but the Mariners looking to tie this thing if Alvaro Espinosa can get the ball in the air. Infield is in. All 4 infielders on the grass already, and Wells is not even on the rubber. Pretty good throw by Bernie Williams. That was a long way away to try and get Wilson. Did he go? No, says Rich Garcia, first base.
Espinosa hit a first pitch double his last time up. He was looking fastball and got an inside fastball and hooked it by Wade Boggs at third. So David Wells in this at-bat starts him off with a hook.
Out of play, 1-1. Top of the 7th here in the Yankee Stadium. And the Yankees lead the Mariners 2-1. Chris Berman along with Buck Martinez. Glad you could join us on a single dip of Wednesday night baseball. Baseball tonight will follow. They got the lead. Now, this is not that often. Are you surprised to see everyone in with the lead?
Not at this point in the batting order.
Wells makes the play himself. Ole. Espinosa is gone.
With the command David Wells has had tonight, Joe Torre is very confident he can bring the infield in and try to cut that run down at the plate. David Wells has had outstanding control all night long, and here he throws a curveball to Espinosa. He gloves it, chases Wilson back at third, and makes it easy play to first.
So now it'll be Rich Amaral, who is 0 for 2 and a sac fly, over the only Mariner run. Inside for a ball. Fastball misses. Mel Stottlemyre want to make sure that Nelson or whoever else is ready out there actually
Nelson's ready down there. He has completed his tosses, and he's just watching David Wells.
rips to left field by Amaral. Back goes Rage. Back to the track. Makes the catch. And a little excitement to that play, did Rock, but David Wells wriggles free after a leadoff double to Wilson. 7th inning stretch time in New York. David Wells still on the long end of a 2-1 Yankee lead, despite the fact that Paul O'Neill kind of misplayed Dan Wilson's leadoff slicing foul for a double. But look at O'Neill come right over to Wells. My bad. Don't worry about it, says David.
Way to pick me up.
Well, let me pick up the Sherwin-Williams pitching summary. Pitching summary is brought to you by Sherwin-Williams Paint Wallpaper Stores. And both Dennis Martinez and David Wells have painted it at times tonight. Wells with a 8 strikeout performance has given up to 7 hits. Dennis Martinez has struck out 3, which these days is high for him. And the second run that he gave up was not earned, although he made one of the errors in that inning. David Wells in his second start this year as the Yankees went at Anaheim. And that was his only win. O'Neill's leg after the slide down in the dirt, down to the warning track. The old Strawberry. Speaking of which, as the Yankees lead it off with Joe Girardi, Darryl Strawberry was seen by the Yankee doctors today. He's diagnosed with inflammation of the articular surface under the left patella, under the kneecap. He'll return tomorrow to Tampa. to be treated with a continued conservative rehabilitation plan. And don't we know what that is? A conservative rehabilitation plan. So Strawberry not in the mix for Joe Torre and Don Zimmer and company for quite a while. Raines with occasionally Witten out in left field.
They're looking at the matchups between his team and the pitchers. Possibility of a pinch hitting situation. Could there be a change? Joe Girardi hit a game-winning home run here on Monday night off of Bobby Ayala for straightaway center field. Right now, he's looking to get on base.
You tiptoe away from that. It was a don't let it strike. Please. Twinkle toe. Girardi is 1 for 2. Chops this one to Davis. That one he grabs. Over to Blowers, 1 out here in the Yankees 7th. That'll bring up Tim Raines, who led off the game for the Yankees, the bottom of the first with a home run.
Well, Russ Davis gets a hot shot, gloves it, and then rights himself and makes a strong throw. It was a misplayed ball by Davis that opened up the gates for the Yankees in the 6th inning to take the lead. Man, if I'm Tim Raines right now with 1 out, I got to think about dragging a bunt down to first base. Mike Flowers is starting there, just getting comfortable with the position.
Well, he thinks about one up the middle, but Alex Rodriguez is there. The quick throw to Blowers, 2 out.
He'd have been better off bunting.
Yeah. You sure now? This is Greg McCarthy, the hard-throwing left-hander from Bridgeport, Connecticut. Lives in Shelton now, in the Valley. He's about an hour and a half from home here as the Mariners have come to Yankee Stadium. Just a ride up 95 and Route 8. From here, if you want directions to Greg's hometown. Wade Boggs is 0 for 2 with a walk. Rounded the third, flew out to center.
With all
I'm sorry about Chris. Boggsy gave me a little bit of information. I said, you know, were you around when Dennis was with the Orioles in his other life? Because my first 0 for 4 was against Dennis Martinez. Last before I went over to Montreal. But how about Boggsy remembering?
He remembers everything.
I know he does.
Last night I asked him about Jamie Moyer. I said, what about Jamie Moyer? He said he hurt his forearm in spring training. He's got a good sinker, good slider, good changeup. Say everything about him.
Past the diving Rodriguez base hit. Boggs is aboard with 2 outs. No collar tonight against El Presidente for Boggs. Now there you go, 2,720 hits. Time for 44th in Major League history and 1 behind the venerable Lou Gehrig. Now, anytime your name is in a sentence with Lou Gehrig, it's pretty good, pretty impressive. Boggs, of course, came into the season the 20th highest lifetime batting average in Major League history at an even .333. So with 2 outs, here's Bernie Williams. Singled his last time up. Came around to score on the error by Davis on a shot by Fielder. So Bernie is 1 for 3 tonight with a run scored.
It's a little surprising to me that Lou Piniella would want Dennis Martinez to face Bernie Williams in this situation, given the fact he's hitting his .226 as a right-handed batter, and he's got McCarthy in the bullpen. Good breaking ball there, evens the count. Dennis and David Wells have both been very impressive here tonight, considering the lineups they have to face. David Wells, 7 hits over 7 innings. Boy, he took something off that pitch. He got a little extra movement on the fastball. Watch the movement as it gets into the hitting zone. Ball sinks out of the strike zone.
Fouled out of play. A little note about Dennis Martinez. He was the one that beat the Seattle Mariners in Game 6 2 years ago for the Indians, propelling the Indians to their first series in 1954. Can he now, and what you assume, although, boy, you start assuming it's his last year, and you never know, and what you assume is his last year, can he help the Mariners get to their first ever World Series? Scott Sanders started the year as the #2 starter. Well, he started game #2. Came over in the trade for Sterling Hitchcock. The slider has not responded. He has yet to get a win, and Lou Piniella wants him to straighten things out in the bullpen. So he joins McCarthy in the Mariner pen with a count 1-2 to Bernie Williams. Boggs the runner at first base. With 2 out in the Yankees 7th. Looking ahead to the Mariner 8th, it's the teeth of the order. Rodriguez, Griffey, and Edgar Martinez. There they are. They want to get in. Swing the bat. Inside, so Bernie Williams has worked the count to full, and with 2 out, that means Boggs will be off on the pitch.
Wheels are spinning now for Martinez. Where does he go against Bernie Williams? He busted him inside with that breaking pitch, and it missed. I got to stay away from him right here. Run the ball down and away.
Little chopper. Espinosa gobbles it over to Blowers. Good hustle by Williams. But the Yankees are gone. And heading into the 8th, the teeth of the order. Alex Rodriguez will lead it off, followed by Junior, Edgar, and company. Take 2. Old-fashioned pitcher's duel here at Yankee Stadium, although we came in talking about Junior Griffey and Tino Martinez and the records. It's been Wells and Dennis Martinez.
Yeah, you have to give these 2 starters a lot of credit for the way they've shut down a couple of very potent lineups, including Ken Griffey Jr. and both Dennis Martinez and David Wells have done a great job of staying ahead, changing speeds, and I think Lou Piniella's got to be thrilled by the performance he's gotten from Dennis Martinez tonight.
Well, Alex Rodriguez leads it off. He is 0 for 3. Now, this was money time last year for the New York Yankees. At this point, although Wells is going strong, and it's not a question of him faltering, the Yankees are the lead after 7. It would be Mariano Rivera in the 8th and John Wetland in the 9th. And, of course, last year the Yankees really rolled all the way to the World Championship in large part because when they led after 7, they were 79-1 in those games. This year, 10-6. Only the White Sox worse in that department. So what a change.
Well, it's going to take the guys a while to settle into their roles down in that bullpen. I mean, it was pretty automatic. Rivera would throw 2, and then Wetland would throw the 9th, so there weren't too many opportunities to come back against New York.
Rodriguez, a foul ball. I thought Torrey's confident on Rivera, even though he is faltered himself. He's still pretty confident about what he has. He wishes Stanton would help him out a little bit more. Bowringer last night ended up with nothing, so Messier had to go an extra outing and didn't have it, but he couldn't blame him. These things take time. With 10-6, what a difference. Oh, the heat, Alex Rodriguez. Strikeout number 9 for David Wells.
Well, I tell you, that's a pretty good sign that when you need a little extra on a fastball, David Wells is able to reach back and pump one by Alex Rodriguez. He came right after, and not only does he throw it hard, but he locates it very effectively.
So that'll bring up Junior Griffey, who tonight has struck out twice and has had a little nubber that he beat out. But hardly the form that we saw Friday night. 3 home runs in Skydome after, I guess, during batting practice, Buck, he was hitting 480. Luis Soho has gone into play second base, former Mariner. And this is chopped foul. Here's a look at Luis Soho in the rain, who in that magical Mariner season in '95 had as magical a hit. That squibber down the line in the playoff game, pitcher's duel that broke it up, the one between Johnson and Mark Langston. Ended up coming all the way around to score as the ball got through and took a 1-0 game, made it 5-0. Here's Griffey, but he gets under it, as does Paul O'Neill. So Junior Griffey does not add to his home run total in April of 13. Now that David Wells really had his number tonight.
Well, they had stayed in on Griffey most of the night, and right here they throw the cut fastball away, and Ken hits it right on the end of the bat and gets a pop up to right field.
Listen to the crowd here as Joe Torre's gone out to the mound. They maybe just saw those statistics that we put up. They know you want to see Wells do the job. And I think Joe says, well done. And here's the standing O. He grew up in San Diego, but really he's a New Yorker at heart. Standing ovation for David Wells. We'll be back. After 7 2/3, giving up 1 run, 7 hits, a season-high 9 strikeouts, and this game is now in the hands Jeff Bull Nelson, a former Mariner, 6'8", had control problems at times last year, came on strong at the end. Working to Edgar Martinez, righty to righty, strike 1.
16th appearance of the season for Nelson. He picked up the win on Monday here after Joe Girardi hit that home run to give the Yankees the lead. Nelson, fastball, slider, very tough on right-handed hitters. Edgar Martinez, 1 for 4 against Nelson.
Make an observation on that ovation that he did not get it. It's 2-1. The ovation that David Wells got. We talked back to the Tino Martinez night when he kind of came the fans accepted him. Wells says, hey, they've been yelling, you're no Jimmy Key, you haven't done it for us. He felt the pressure. I think that ovation tonight was an acceptance of you're one of us now. I think we'll look back at this night, and so will David, is the night when he was really the full-blooded Yankee.
What you want to do when you join a new team is make a contribution and put up some W's if you're a pitcher. And David Wells had a rocky spring training with the Yankees. He broke his hand in California in a fight. Everybody talked about, well, you know, maybe he's not the type of guy we need here, but I'll tell you, Joe Torre loves him.
2-2 the count to Edgar Martinez. Fans hoping for strikeout. Wells at 9. Strikeout! Rich Garcia punches him out. 10 strikeouts for Yankee pitching. Nelson retires Martinez. As we head to the bottom of the 8th, the Yankees cling to the 2-1 lead. Back at Yankee Stadium, where the Yankees lead the Mariners 2-1 in a rousing game at this point. This copyrighted telecast is presented by the authority of the Commissioner of Baseball. Cannot be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without express written consent. I don't think I got that word on my SATs, Buck. I don't know. Well, he got the word tonight, the man on the right. David Wells talking with Kenny Rogers. And He sits and hopes that Mariano Rivera can nail it down for him tonight. The hard-throwing left-hander from Shelton, Connecticut, Greg McCarthy, will step to the mound. So Dennis Martinez is the longest outing of the season. He's complete, but again, that 2-17 scheme against the Yankees. And he only gave up the 2 runs, one of them earned. But again, he stands to lose another game against the New York Yankees. He's saying, what do I have to do?
Well, I tell you, Lou Piniella would be pleased to have that type of effort from Dennis Martinez every time he goes to the mound. They need a right-hander to pitch effectively in this rotation.
Now, I want you to watch this Greg McCarthy pitch, who we saw pitch, Buck. You were with us with Joe Morgan, and I did the game 2 at the Yankees-Mariners series. A left-hander that throws this hard. I know he's had control problems. Where has he been? You watch how hard he throws, this McCarthy. Now a rookie at the ripe old age of 28. That's a live arm.
Yeah, he's got a good arm, and as you mentioned, control has been a problem. He missed an entire season in 1991. He originally came out of the Phillies organization, and Montreal drafted him in a Rule 5, and then Cleveland took a shot at him in a Rule 5 because of that arm.
Ripped by Tino Martinez to right field. Back. Gone! For RBIs in Major League history for the month of April is now 34. For Tino, his 9th home run of the year, his 4th against his ex-mate. And can you spell insurance?
Boy, what a way to finish up a great month for Tino Martinez. He went down and golfed a low fastball and hit a bullet out of the ballpark.
Well, we knew McCarthy was going to throw gas. We raved about it, and he sat on it. Paul O'Neill looks at ball 1. And the Tino chants are starting, as well they should. The Major League record set last year by Barry Bonds at 32. The American League record, Joe Carter, 31 in 94. Tino has erased both of those. Barring a 5 RBI night by Moise Alou of Florida, he'll have that record by his lonesome.
Right now, it doesn't make any difference for Tino Martinez. Left-handed, right-handed, underhanded, anything. He is seeing the ball well.
Shot foul. Wide of Jose Cardinal.
Take a look at this swing.
Well, let me see now. Tino, number 24. Junior, 24. And I know a guy named Mays for it. Well, here's a blast by O'Neill, but just a straightaway center field to Junior Griffin. Both guys going to the record books wear the same number. I don't think Tino was going to get that number if he stayed with the Mariners, do you?
Nah, it's already occupied.
Nardi Contreras, the pitcher's coach, says to McCarthy, we'll see you. Scott Sanders coming in. The Yankees lead it 3-1.
ESPN's Wednesday Night Baseball is brought to you by the Coors Light Wide Mouth Can. Tap the Rockies with a smoother pour. And by Slick 50 Advanced Formula Engine Treatment, America's favorite engine treatment.
3-1 Yankees, bottom of the 8th inning, thanks to the solo home run by Tino Martinez, and Greg McCarthy is gone. Greg McCarthy is gone. See that? And there you go, Buck. That's Dennis Martinez knowing that, well, maybe I'm now going to lose this game, probably, but he's a young guy that can help us, and that's why you have a 41-year-old like Dennis Martinez on the bench.
A classy move. He went over to console a guy that just gave up a home run. Scott Sanders is on, and he needs to have a couple of good innings. We heard Chris talk about it earlier. He gave up 8 home runs in 19 2/3 innings as a starter this year.
Well, Tino Martinez started him on his downslide in that game that we had, game 2 out there in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. So he'll face Fielder and Jeter. And if you're looking ahead to the Mariner ninth, Buhner, Blowers, and Wilson. And while I look at a home run hitter like Cecil Fielder up, I think we would be remiss if we didn't congratulate a good friend of ours, Charles Theodore Davis, Chili Davis, on home run number 300 last night. Won the game for the Royals. Became only the 75th man to have 300 home runs, so congratulations, Chili.
A 10th inning home run, the difference in the ball game.
Pat Kelly getting some stretch, probably going to second base has been the plan here. For Mariano Duncan. Count is 2-2 to Cecil, who's been on base all 3 times tonight with a single, a hit by pitch, and an error. It's his smash to the legs of Russ Davis that scored Bernie Williams in the 6th. But the Yankees ahead. Mariano Rivera throwing in the bullpen. We expect to see him in the 9th. Cecil to center field. Back goes Junior. He's got room and makes the catch. There's 2 out. Don't forget our Sunday Night Baseball. John and Joe will be at the Dome in Houston. For the Marlins and the Stros. 2 teams hoping for postseason will get together. Kevin Brown. Donnie Wall scheduled started. Did a good job last night, did Wall, back from the minors. Brown at 3-1, of course, has done a good job all year. That's Sunday Night Baseball. Following baseball tonight. Peter Gams and yours truly on Baseball Tonight. And then John and Joe and the gang on our Sunday night game of the week. Derek Jeter shows bunt. Pulls it back for the ball. Jeter 1 for 2 and was hit by a pitch. 0 for 17 slump with his single in the 4th. There's Mariano Rivera. The closer, Jeff Nelson, certainly did his job. Getting it as your Martinez just came in to face 1 batter, but pretty dangerous one at that. Don't forget, Baseball Tonight follows us here with Ravi and Soup. Soup's on tonight for a double dip. And if it's minestrone or is it chowder? What do you think?
Chowder. Feels like a chowder
I think
night.
Soup is chowder.
You can see that Sanders has a good arm. That's why Mariners are kind of anxious for him to get it turned around. Boy, he blows a fastball down and away to Derek Jeter. Good fastball, great slider. He got off to a rough start as a starter, and Pinellas trying to get him straightened out down in the bullpen.
We still have all the Baseball Tonight, all the list of the home runs in orbit. You see who's stroked them deep tonight. Of course, McGuire hit one through the scoreboard. Outside and high to Jeter, and he's walked. So with 2 outs, the Yankees have a base runner for Mariano Duncan. That's Soho, of course, who came in the game an inning ago, my mistake. He gave a big speech about his hit for the Mariners against Mark Langston, and then I dissed him. And he has one of my favorite nicknames. For you, for you Warren Zevon fans, Louis Soho in the rain. The line from Werewolves of London. Looking for a dish of beef chow mein, Lee Ho Fo, on the streets of London. Well, Warren Zevon fans know exactly what I'm talking about. I don't know that Luis does, but I did explain it to him once. He seemed to like it. Looking for a pina colada at Trader Vic's. Inside.
Lou Piniella was talking about Scott Sanders around the batting cage today, saying, you know what, this guy's got good stuff. I just think he needs to get a win or two under his belt to get him to relax a little bit. It's difficult when you're coming over trying to make an impression on the manager and the coaching staff and a new team.
New lead. Here goes Jeter. Wilson's throw is high. Jeter is stolen a base.
Dan Wilson didn't have much of a chance. Jeter gets a great jump at first base. You can see as soon as Sanders moved, he was on the way to second. The throw is a little bit on the shortstop side of second. There's the hard, aggressive slide here. Watch the tag. Just in the back of the leg as he hits the base.
Derek now 5 for 5 in the stolen base category. So Soho with a chance to plate yet another insurance run. Gino Martinez provided one with a home run. Reno to Soho. Looking down at Willie Randolph. Get the green light.
Yeah, he'll get the green light because I've got a tremendous regard for his strike zone. It's a little high, didn't it?
Joe on the verge of win number 1,000 as a manager. Mets, Braves, and Cards and Yanks. Add him up, he's got $9.99. Oh, there's the fastball. And now the count is full. Again, the Mariner ninth. Buhner, Blowers, and Wilson. Who combined. Now we'll talk about it when we get to the ninth. Again, baseball tonight coming up following our action here at the stadium. Tino in the record books. Mariano Rivera about to enter the game. David Wells about to win for the first time as a Yankee in Yankee Stadium, if his team can hold on. Soho, that still would do it. It's off the facade, the upper stands on the right field side. I always like to see that, the foul ball way down the stands where there's about 2 people sitting at this point, and the ball's near nobody. Then you have a great race going on, and it's always interesting to see who gets the jump on the ball. Good crowd of 25,000 plus on hand. 25,708. Not all of them left, but they were vociferous and knew what they were watching tonight, Buck. He misses. So a pair of walks has put 2 on now for Joe Girardi.
Well, this is the problem that they have seen with Sanders. That wasn't the case with Dennis Martinez, who was sharp tonight. 7 innings, scattered 7 hits, 1 earned run allowed. But he's in line for another L.
You know, when you pitch for as long as he has, and you haven't won in a place since 1977. And you're 2-17, it's a strike. 2-17 lifetime against the club. At what point do you admit, and you pitch like this, you just might be a little bit snake-bit? I mean, at what point do you admit?
2 and 17 to do it for me.
Dennis pitched great tonight. Girardi with a fly ball to center. Junior lopes back so effortlessly and makes the catch, and the pair of runners are stranded. But Tino Martinez's home run has given the Yankees a 2-run cushion for Mariano Rivera, trying to nail it down in the ninth. Tino, solo. 3-1 Yanks. I mean, he hits him out of Yellowstone.
There's going to be some athletics flu out there when pitchers travel to Coliseum this summer.
Wow, wowee. And that Indian pitching letting him down once again, that bullpen. Well, speaking of bullpen, not quite the same as it was here last year, but Mariano Rivera, 9 Ks in 14 and a third. Bill Torrey is confident that he can assimilate himself into this role. There's the number that is so drastically different from last year.
Well, last year we talked about Rivera pitching the 7th and 8th, and then Wetland coming on in the 9th, and they were practically unbeatable. Different story for Joe Torre this year, but you could bet that Mariano Rivera will turn things around. The interesting number for Rivera is 17 hits in 14 and a third. Last year, he was nearly unhittable.
His strikeout ratio was higher last year. And of course, it's very early yet. Jay Buhner tries to reach that fast. One thing about Rivera, as you know, Buck, his fastball, it's faster than you think it is.
Yeah, that's because of his delivery. It's a very slow, deliberate delivery, and the ball just jumps out of his hands. You know, when you were facing a guy like Rich Gossage, who had a very animated, pumping delivery and that high leg kick, you anticipated the ball being hard. But Rivera is so smooth in his delivery, that ball really gets on you in a hurry.
You know, Yankee fans, as that pitcher's up top 2-1, Yankee fans got spoiled, obviously, with Rivera to Wetland. I mean, there haven't been that many bona fide, 8th to 9th when Toronto won the World Series. Oh, there's Buhner. A long way to center. Back goes Bernie Williams. Back to the fence. Gone! Home run number 4 for Jay Buhner, who was the one scuffling in this lineup tonight of the big hitters. He's had 2 singles and now a long home run of about 400 feet.
Well, we talked about Jay Buhner getting hot, and he got a hold of that high fastball, and he knew it was gone, even though it was to center. He crushed that ball. And a very perplexed Mariano Rivera stands on the mound and watches as the Mariners have climbed to within 1.
This is Joey Cora now to pinch hit for Mike Flowers, as Piniella will go swap righty-lefty. He has Sorrento, a left-handed power hitter, still available to him. So how big is that home run by Tino Martinez at this point? Oh. Broken bat. Soho. Martinez, 1 out. Now, we mentioned Sorrento. He will bat for the catcher, Dan Wilson, who had a good night tonight. Wilson, 2 for 3 with a single and a double, but it's lefty against righty Heat.
Well, you've got a home run guy in Sorrento, and you're down by a run with 1 out, so you give him an opportunity to take a whack.
So Sorrento, 3 for 4 lifetime against Mariano Rivera, will step in, and this is a strike on the inside corner. 3-2 game as each team has gone deep here in their last at bat.
That home run by Buhner was the 2nd of the season allowed by Rivera. Last year in 107 innings, he gave up 1.
Broken bat. Martinez will take it himself, and there's 2 outs in the Mariner ninth. And that'll bring up Russ Davis, whose error allowed the second Yankee run to score, and he struck out twice and flown to center. So if there's someone who wants to make amends, it would be the former Yankee Russ Davis, and David Wells stands to win for the second time as a New York Yankee. Stands up his marked lifetime at Yankee Stadium to 10-2. If Mariano Rivera can come on with save number 7. Ball tails away from Davis. It hit the corner. Strike 1. Strike 2.
Well, he has got it going now.
Could it be win number 1,000 for Joe Torre as a manager? Yes, sir. 1, 2, 3, and sit down for Russ Davis. So after Mariano Rivera made it interesting and allowed the home run to Jay Buhner, David Wells gets the win for the Yanks as the Yankees beat the Mariners 3-2 and win the rubber game of this 3-game set. A good ball game, Buck.
A great ball game. 2 fine performances, and Buhner gets a long home run to make it close.
Well, thanks for watching on a Wednesday Night Baseball tonight. Coming up next, the Carl Robinson, Dave Campbell, Buck Martinez. This is Chris Berman saying thank you. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. Once again, the final. The Yankees 3, the Mariners 2.